G'day and welcome to Pub for Heretics. I'm your co-host Blake, and
And I'm Corbin.
yeah, that's right. We're in a library. Corbin and I have always had like kind of book club thing going on, and we've just been piggybacking and different books off of each other. But now we're actually going to start recording it now that we have a podcast.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about all the fabulous 40k books that we've been reading.
I would say I'm about like 40 plus, 50 plus books deep at the moment when it comes to Warhammer. What about you?
I'm over
Something
20,
similar.
over 25. I'm pretty sure last time I looked at my library.
No, I'd say you're pretty much up there with me, like 30 or 40, because like usually we're doing them at the same time.
Yeah, I know I'm like 15 books in the Heresy,
Hmm.
and I've probably read like another 15 or so. I can actually just quickly check them.
Yeah.
As long as Audible plays along, which it hasn't been tonight. I don't know why, it's not loading well.
Yeah.
But fairly deep into the books.
I've read about 50 titles on Audible, but some of them are the Harry Potter books.
Yeah. Well, recently you've been flying through the books a lot faster than I have.
Yeah, I don't know why. So for our first book that we've decided to work on together and do a book review on is the beginning of the Nightlords trilogy, which is the book Soul Hunter.
Yes, and I must say, fabulous recommendation from Blake. It has been an amazing read.
Yeah, and you're not even a typical Nightlord simp.
No, like I enjoy them as much as, your next non-Space Marine centric guy, but yeah, no, very, very interesting.
So
I did originally think that Kurz was the only interesting part of the Night Lords, and I'm happy to be proven wrong.
I would actually argue that the actual legionnaires of his legion are actually more interesting than Kurz, arguably, and that's saying a lot because Kurz is really interesting already.
Yeah, well, some of them certainly are. Some of
Well,
them,
'cause
some of them are just exactly what you expect of a Night Lord.
that's true, but like even Scrivok, I would say is like fairly interesting especially compared to other legions and other their notable characters. Then we got Sevatar, Talos, Malkarian,
Yeah,
Vandred,
even Uzaz.
even Uzaz, even though he's a. Well, we're going to get into that now.
Yeah,
So, what did you think of the beginning?
the beginning was great. I already knew a bit going into it,
Mhm.
but the start, because it starts with Sevatar. No, sorry, Septimus. I keep mixing them up. Their names are too similar.
Mm.
Septimus waiting outside the door of his master, and
Yeah,
I didn't know initially that that was Talos, which was nice, and then that kind of got into it a little bit, and I was like, okay, yeah, that makes
yeah, and he's
sense.
kind of having a vision, or he's kind of having like that kind of timeout time.
Yeah, banging his head against the wall.
Mm.
Yeah,
Even though he's still wearing his helmet,
yeah.
and the fact that it's pitch black and that only certain slaves get to carry the lanterns.
Yes. No, I quite liked the ambience that they built around like the feel of the ship
Mm.
and
It's
how they're constantly
it,
talking about like its former glory and how that's like reflected in the like shambles it is now.
yeah, and I like that. Just like Nostromo and just like Gotham for Batman, the ship in itself, the Covenant of Blood that they're on, is kind of like a character in their own right.
Yeah. And it definitely feels like more than just the setting.
And Aaron Dembski Bowden, the writer, absolutely perfectly nails like setting it up and the creepiness and the darkness, and that the slaves and the Night Lords just walk around in pitch black darkness.
Yeah, I mean, I'm yet to read a book by ADB that hasn't been just fantastic, but this one really like knocked it out of the park.
There probably is, but I couldn't recall it. And for a Warhammer writer, that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, it's also great seeing the Traitor Legion from the perspective of the Traitor Legion and them just not being the bad guys.
Portrayed as like sympathetic protagonists.
Yeah, like they're the main character.
Whereas like if these people existed in modern times, we'd just be like, kill them. They don't deserve to live, and I'm not going to hear their story.
Yeah, and like the Dark Imperium books and stuff like that, like you get a good view of the Death Guard, but they're always seen as like the villains and they're portrayed. Yeah, they're portrayed as such. They you don't basically the same kind of in-depth look.
And then the funny thing is that because this is part of a trilogy, this is also rare in a lot of Warhammer books, is because usually it's one book and that's it, or it's their story is kind of spread out across several books over the Horus Heresy, for example.
Yeah.
But like in this, they have their own condensed trilogy, and I would say that this is Soul Hunter is very similar to being like the New Hope or Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring equivalent for this trilogy.
Yeah, it's a lot of setup, a lot of new characters, but you quickly differentiate between them because they're all very distinct.
The books.
No, oh no, the characters.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
Them too.
Yeah, like initially it's like telling you these different people, like Syrian comes up to check on Telos and Septimus is talking to him and you're like, oh okay, it's dropping names, I don't know anything yet. But then like by the next chapter you know who's who.
Yeah, and Sirion's actually kind of nice to him, and you're like, okay, it's a bit weird for a Night Lord if you're coming into it with that kind of knowledge about the Night Lords, and okay, this is very weird. And then you get into it with Zal, and then you see Uzaz a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you see Captain Vandred, who is actually now the Exalted.
Yeah, I love, and I think it's even in the first chapter when Syrian goes up and Septimus is waiting outside Telos's room, and it's too dark. Like Septimus can't see which Night Lord is there, like inquiring about him, and Syrian makes him guess who it is, and he guesses that it's Syrian because he laughed.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I love that.
It's little shit like that that makes this book so good. It's sometimes unbelievably funny.
Yeah. No, it's really good, and especially the bits that are told from the perspective of Septimus, who, ironically, is one of my favorite characters in the book. He's not even a Night Lord.
That's the thing about these books, is that ironically the human characters are, weirdly enough, more interesting than the Space Marine characters.
Yeah, which is not to say that the Space Marine characters aren't fantastic.
Yeah,
like you absolutely love Telos the whole way through the first book. Like,
and that's not even putting down the Space Marine characters and their arcs. It's just a testament to how good all the characters are written.
Yeah, and that is kind of true for a lot of Warhammer books, is that when you see the Space Marines from the human perspective, it's almost more enjoyable.
It reminds me of the Fulgrim book in the Horus Heresy, where you see the Fulgrim through the eyes of the I can't remember his name.
Oh yes, for the stonemason.
Yeah, the stonemason guy, and he's just like, this guy looks garish and gross. And seeing a Primarch that way, and it's just very interesting, and I find that having those contrasting viewpoints is always interesting in these kind of books, because these guys are literally demigods, but having it seen through different types of human perspectives is always interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the next thing that happens is you're introduced to Captain Vandred.
Yes.
Who is now actually the Exalted.
Yeah.
This is actually not confirmed in any of the books as far as I remember, but it doesn't say what type of demon takes him over, but I'm guessing it's a Tzeentch one.
Yeah, or it could be Chaos Undivided, kind of like what slaps Purdy.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Like, it's just a manifestation from all of them.
Yeah, because he's talking about his talons, and I'm just like, well, that's very bird-like, that could be Tzeentch. And because, as we find out later on in the book, towards the end, is that he's very good at void warfare, and he's very good at strategizing, and I'm like, okay, that's very Tzeentch too.
Yeah,
but it could also be Chaos Undivided.
Yeah, because at the same time, he's constantly licking his razor-sharp teeth and making his tongue bleed and tasting the blood.
I think that's just a demon thing.
There's a whole bunch of things that he's very demonic. And it talks about a lot of possessed that, like, have the warp taint, but they aren't necessarily, like, possessed by a specific demon.
Yeah. And it's also interesting just seeing how far the Night Lords have fallen since the Horus Heresy. Because, like, in the next book, you see Uzaz before he becomes so, like, Khorne corrupted, because, like, and that's the thing, is that even though the Night Lords themselves are Chaos Undivided, every now, like, a member or two here and there might declare for one of the gods or all the gods.
Yeah, and Telos, the main character, absolutely resents and, like, hates the Chaos gods and their like affliction.
See it as a weakness.
Yeah. And detestable. What's wrong with the Legion is how he kind of sees it. And when you first are introduced to the Exalted, you hate him. he's
Yeah.
he's a piece of work, and you totally side with Talos, being like, because he's Talos's boss, but Talos is mouthy as, absolutely hates him, and like has no fear
No
for
respect.
no respect for what he's become.
Hmm. Considering the fact that you find out throughout the book that Talos has a deep respect for the Legion and deep respect for Kurz, and sort of see things from his point of view, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I think it's more that he loves his Legion for what it was, and he hates what
Instead of
it's
what it became,
become. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I agree.
yeah. It's oh, yeah, that's really good. And then he has the meeting with the Exalted, and then after that, he tells the Exalted about his dream, and they go off to a little floating rock of Nostromo, because Nostromo was destroyed by Kurz.
Yeah. And I find that so interesting that they literally go back to their roots, to the planet where they were born, and then they happen to come across, well, not happen, but
Yeah.
obviously prophesized by Talos, because Talos, as he is revealed, he's got the prophetic dreams similar to Kurz in seeing the death of people he's near.
Yeah, and more than that, he also kind of sees what he needs to have to better the Legion as well. A lot of his prophecies kind of revolve around that. But yeah, it's really interesting, and I love that it switches to the perspective of the people they're about to kill right before like
Well,
a battle hits.
they literally spend like half a chapter talking about these people and how they come to this point and how they've acquired this ship and just and their mindset about what they're going to go do, and then it's going to the ground of all these servitors, and Octavia we are introduced to, the astropath.
Yeah, yeah, the Navigator, and
Another great human character.
great human character, but she is like she's a stubborn, raw, like noble at the beginning. Like she refuses the help of her guards, and it's like, well, what good is it gonna do? They've already like destroyed the ship. We can't get off this floating rock now.
Yeah, because the Nightlords turn up and then destroy the ship, and now she's stranded on this asteroid with all these servitors.
Yeah. It's just so good.
Yeah, and then the Nightlords come down. They take all the servitors, because it's interesting seeing like a Space Marine Legion, even a Trader one, like at this point where they're just scavenging.
Yeah, they're having to like pirate everything that they want, because they are so diminished and they don't have the resources to restock anything.
And they don't, by the looks of it, they don't have the support of like the Dark Mechanicus on the larger scale. Like they have their own Mechanicus on crew, but they don't have like supply lines, if you know what I mean, like to the extent the Black Legion do.
Yeah, and but when they're taking over that ship, it's one of my favorite parts of the book, when they're trying to get back out, and the ship's blowing up, and they can't get back to the drop pod, and Talos is like, "I have a plan. It may not be a very good one." And they decide to blow a hole in the ship and get sucked out into space to get caught.
Oh, no, you're jumping ahead. We're still on the Astropath ship. That's the Imperial Guard ship when they're in the Kraz system.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, and then we're introduced with Octavia on that planet. They take the servitors. You're introduced a little bit more to the characters, and then on top of that, Talos and Septimus are trying to find Octavia because he knows who he's looking for. And then she just comes out of nowhere and starts smacking his head with a piece of metal.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, "Stop that!" and grabs her by the neck.
Yeah, and he walked in. He knew that she was a navigator already, because she was like, "Oh, why isn't he getting affected by like seeing my third eye?" And it's because he already had his eyes closed when he walked in.
Yeah, because he
what
knew
he was coming up against. Yeah. That was good. I liked that bit.
Yeah, and then we're further introduced to like Sirion. And what's your opinion on Sirion?
I like Sirion. He is kind of like the best friend in a show. Like he doesn't get as much of the limelight, but he's just like a good bloke, and that's Rich talking about a Night Lord, because obviously he's not a good bloke, but he's just like, he's there for Talos, and he kind of eases the tension a lot between all of them, which is really interesting. I quite like him.
I want you to remember those words, just so you know.
Yeah.
And what do you think of Uzaz?
Uzaz is a complicated soul. He has
I would
been
say the
warp
opposite.
tainted.
I would say he's actually very simple and straightforward.
Well, and it comes more in play in the second book, but in the first book you just see him as like, he is a murderous, corn devoted um, soul that like just wants to kill, blood for the blood god. He goes a bit crazy. He loses his mind all the time, and he
Mhm.
just flies into these rages. But as you find out in the second book, he detests the gods,
Hmm.
and he like curses their names out and stuff in moments of clarity. But he has also already been claimed.
And what do you think of Zal? Zal is Talos' oldest friend since they were kids on Nostromo.
Yeah, except that they weren't really friends.
No, not really. No.
But yeah, Zal is awesome. I love that he's also like Telos in that he resents like the warp affliction, but
Mhm.
also he's the duelist. He has a sick two-handed chain sword, and
Mhm.
yeah, he's just really cool. He's your badass fighter.
I like him as well for that reason. You appreciate him more later on in the other books, but he he's got this kind of pessimistic side to him as well, which I kind of like, and I don't know why.
Yeah, well, like in the scene when Telos is talking to him, and he's like, he's talking about Uzaz being like corrupted, and you can't trust him or whatever. But then he also
Mhm.
talks about Syrian, because Syrian feels the fear of other people around, and he's like, oh, he's warp tainted or whatever. And Telos is like talking to him, but he stops and he reflects on what Telos said and actually offers some insight, and it
Hmm.
catches Telos off guard because it's like he shared his honest opinion.
Yeah,
And I don't know, I quite like that. Like
I'm
it's
not sure if
almost
they
like
have respect that he.
reserved, yeah, and reserved honesty. Like he's
Hmm.
like he's a ponderer. He thinks about things and doesn't always share his opinion.
Does it happen in this book or does it happen in Blood River where he goes, "I don't like you, and I've never liked you, but I respect you."
No, yeah, that's in Soul Hunter.
Soul Hunter, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So he's just like, yeah. I don't think of you as a friend. I don't even like you, but I
yeah,
respect you, and all of your predictions have come true, and you actually lead us out of danger, and you lead us from the front lines.
yeah,
Why do you not like? Why do you not think that we would see you at proper for leadership or as leader of First Claw?
yeah, yeah. No, it's good, and it is a really interesting like relationship that they all have because they all, right, at the best of times barely tolerate each other, and at the worst of
Yeah,
times absolutely hate each other. Like when they're in the
they still
dropship,
work
and
together.
yeah, and Uzaz is like chanting his like shit before they like in the drop pod, and Telos just like punches him in the face repeatedly to try to snap him out of it. It's like,
Mm,
yeah, brothers.
yeah, pretty much. It's like like yeah, there is a brotherhood here, but you got to remember they're Night Lords.
Yeah, and they're all full of hate, and
Yeah,
they're all bad people. Which
yeah,
is which is the whole thing. Like you like these characters, and in Soul Hunter you don't really see as much of their dark side.
mm,
But if you know anything about Night Lords, they're horrible people. Like
mm,
they're all murderers, or they were like most of them were murderers before they became Space Marines.
mm. They're all gangsters, thanks to fucking Scrivok. Um,
Yeah.
and like on top of that, are taken on a journey and introduced to your boy Abaddon the Despoiler.
Yes, when Abaddon calls for him, I was
Mm.
like, oh, shit's gonna go down.
I was
Um,
just interesting, like how are they going to portray Abaddon in this? Because sometimes books, like with any character and any writer, sometimes it depends on the writer how they're portrayed. But I genuinely think they did Abaddon justice in this book in showing him.
I think they did as well. And some of the like small descriptions that they used, like how he's just there talking to Telos and he's like opening and closing the claw of
Yeah, he's
Horus.
constantly clicking
Like
his claws and everything. Yeah.
yeah, just like as he like is thinking, and it's like, yeah, you can very, very clearly picture him.
Hmm.
But also the interaction between Telos and Abaddon, because he goes down with First Claw and
Hmm.
one of the Atramenta, which is the Terminator guards that look after the Exalted, and they all wait outside, and Talos is there alone with Abaddon, and Talos keeps referring to him as the second War Master. And it's such a slap in the face. Like, he's so
That
underhanded.
that whole interaction, I just had the image of the Chad meme in my head the whole time, and I'm just like, this guy
Yeah.
is talking to arguably the most dangerous space marine, like traitorous space marine of all,
Yeah.
in this current time setting.
And on
he's
a
just like,
prison planet that they've just freed, surrounded by
Yeah.
like thousands of people that want to like worship
oh yeah,
Abaddon.
let's talk about that. They've got a prison planet with void shields.
Yeah. These people on death row.
Yeah, talk about that shit for a second. Like, what? The stupid, and it, like Talos is remarking on the stupidity of the Imperium wasting resources, and I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, when they like have to like scrounge for everything that they have, and the Imperium's like, yeah, these people are on death row, but we're going to void shield it just in case.
We're using them for slave labor at this point.
Yeah. Oh no, it was very, very interesting.
And then the funny thing is, like, another reason why I love Zal so much is like when the Terminator squad of the Black Legion and the Atramentar and the Nightlords of First Claw are holding all their guns at each other. And I can't remember who it says, I think it might have been Syrian, where he was like, remember when we used to trust each other? Zal, no.
No, yeah, it's so good. They're all actually, like, Syrian, Zal, and Telos are so sassy. They are very sassy, and they kind of
extra funny because it catches you off guard.
Yeah, it's their interactions are fantastic.
And
I like that.
Talk about the interaction with Abaddon, because it was interesting him being so deeply honest with Abaddon, because he's just like, why would I waste my time going on another one of your useless crusades?
Yeah, well, he's just like taking digs at him because Abaddon was like, it's a battle of wits. They have like wordplay between them, and Abaddon's talking about like the failed legion and how that he baits Telos into a bit of anger when he refers to Kurz instead of the Night Haunter, and and Telos is like,
I only bow to my Primarch.
Yeah, well, Telos is like, I first referred to your Primarch as the first War Master with some respect. You will speak about the Night Haunter in the same way. Because you were a first captain. You are not a Primarch. You're not a, And, that was good. But he baited him into a bit of anger, and then it basically all resolves with Abaddon being like, well, if you turn down my offer, then I'm going to kill you. And he turns and shoots him.
Yeah, and shoots him with this poison Nurgle shit, where it like puts him into a deep sleep and bypasses his Space Marine anatomy.
Yeah, some sort of thing concocted by his priests. But
and then he goes on like a vision quest.
Yeah, but before that, it flips to Octavia and
Septimus up in Black in the ship.
Yeah, on Black in the ship, sitting outside of the prison, and Septimus is just terrified because he's realized that all of their communications are being blocked.
And all First Claw have been told to leave the planet and go back up.
Yeah, they get
another Black Legion ship.
Yeah, because they get told that the blackened ship was overrun and destroyed, and then Septimus is just watching them take off in a Black Legion Stormhawk back
and
to
then
their
sees
ship.
a whole horde of prisoners coming straight for him and Octavia, and he's like, shit.
Yeah, he's like, oh wow, if only these guns all worked, because they don't have their gunnery servitors, and also their ammunition's on like the low end. So he's like, I don't have enough bullets.
Guns to kill them all, yeah.
Yeah, to kill them all.
And the funny thing is that like you get a small like insight into the mind of a prisoner as he dies running these guns.
Yeah, just running against the guns.
Although, and I was like, okay, good choice, but all right.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have much of a chance. The elevator doors opened and they all ran out, and it's just like, bang, and he exploded into a mist around everybody else.
It quickly reminded me of like how bad this Grimdark is, because he's having the thoughts that, oh yeah, we were told there's a woman on board, and I'm like, oh no.
Yes, there's a lot of foreshadowing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just talks about them blowing up the ship, having explosives, and then it cuts back to Talos having his vision quest with the four gods, and he's tempted mostly by Slanesh and Tzeentch. He's shown like a future of everybody listening to him, having all this power, and he's having all these strategies and stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't want to lead, and it's like,
he's like, no, this is not real. And then he goes into Slanesh, where he's like running through the field, enjoying everything, and just enjoying the slaughter and the pride of everybody bowing to him. And then he's like, no, this ain't it either. And then it gets to Nurgle, and Nurgle's just like, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah, Nurgle's like, you're not one of my chosen. You would never accept, and I wouldn't have you. And then he turns around and leaves. And it's like, I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Khorne, and Khorne's just like, nah, fam, this ain't it.
Yeah, no, but like, yeah, Nurgle's like, no, I don't even want you. And just like turns and leaves, and it's like, the only god with enough sense to like recognize instantly that it was like why was I summoned here? I don't want this, and like whatever, it just turns and leaves. I was like, yeah, Nurgle Chad.
Yeah. And Khorne's just like, you can have it if you want. And then he's like, nah. And then he gets out of his vision quest.
Yeah, but it's interesting because he asks Tzeentch if he has claimed Syrian, and
or Vandred.
No,
it was Syrian.
He asked about Syrian because of the fair thing, and he's like, oh, he does work with me. Was it Slanesh or Tzeentch?
Yeah, it was Slanesh, because Slanesh. Yeah,
I thought it was Tzeentch because he sees the fear.
Nah, Slanesh.
Yeah, but then and then he asks Khorne about Uzaz, and Uzaz is like, he's not mine yet, but he will be.
Yeah, so because he's not entirely gone to Khorne yet.
Yeah, it's just.
And then he wakes up, slaughters the priests, and then escapes.
Yeah. Well, it tosses up about killing Abaddon, and then it's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, and then it cuts to Abaddon talking to Reuven, the traitorous Night Lord prick that's gone over to the Black Legion.
Yes, and I know this isn't our Blood Reaver episode, but oh my god, seeing him get his comeuppance. So good.
Yeah, Reuven is a character that comes back. He's not so much in this book, but he is set up. And him and his machinations with Captain Vandred and all that, the Exalted.
Yeah.
And Abaddon, because the Exalted wanted Talos to have less allies, so that's why he left Octavia and Septimus on the planet to be killed by the prisoners, because he didn't want. Because, he claimed the Astropath as his own, and that's kind of like a power play in the whole Game of Thrones shit of the Night Lords.
Yeah, it was having the ability to travel through the warp without having Vandred and his navigator. So it was like a big power threat to him.
If their navigator died, and he's like, oh, you want to use my navigator? But that's the thing, is that I don't think even Talos saw it from that point of view, but Vandred's paranoia probably just settled in with that.
Yeah,
as
and
a challenge.
Also, because Talos hadn't really seen at that point, but it's kind of hinted at in the book that the old navigator of the Covenant of Blood is not doing so well.
Yeah, I don't think
he's
it's
on
even
the way out.
Yeah, I don't even think that he's trying to take on Vandred. It's that he's following his visions, and this is where his visions are leading him.
Yeah.
And then it gets to, I was doing load in the morning, and I literally stopped when I was listening to this part where it has Talos run through the ruins of the blackened ship.
Yes, now we need to be careful about how we describe this for YouTube purposes, but yes.
I was talking about Septimus.
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about how he's running through the warehouse chasing after Octavia.
No. Because, just seeing Septimus torn apart, and I'm just like...
Yeah.
I loved this character. I literally put down the box I was holding, and I was like, no. I actually liked this character a lot. And he's like, yes, Lord.
I know, I thought he was dead too.
He's alive.
Yeah, I thought he was dead too, and I was like, oh, that's really sad. I wanted to hear more about it.
I wanted to see his perspective a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then he's alive, and then Talos brings out a bit of his apothecary abilities, and he's like, take this Malthesium and these bandages. I'm going to go get the Octavia.
Yeah, yeah. He gives a quick bandage up of like the most serious ones. He's like, you have to do the
Now,
rest yourself.
which part of where we should be careful of?
Oh, just um,
Talking about Octavia.
a specific word we can't use. Yes, because
I
Octavia
don't
was
think
taken, but
I don't
by
think they did that. I think they beat her. They beat her up.
no, that was
Because
the
there's no mention
intention
to it.
though. It was the intention.
Oh yeah, the intention of it. Yeah,
Yes,
the
yes,
the big R word.
yes, because they kidnapped her.
For that reason, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
because and then took her to a
horrible
dark
prisoners.
warehouse to be
Deep
alone with
deep
her.
underground.
Yeah,
And then Talos is like running past, and then all these prisoners that are in lines for the Black Legion like outstretch their hands, and they're just like, "Oh, another one of our saviors!" And then Talos just fucking runs right through them.
yeah, just like carving them up, stomping on their
Yeah.
heads. Like, yeah, he's like, out of my way! I need to save my navigator.
Now, this part perfectly encapsulates why I love the Nightlords, is that when he's chasing down these prisoners, and you see it from the prisoner's perspective, they've beaten up Octavia with the intent of doing the R word. All they hear is as Talos' footsteps just reverberate through the ground and the sound of through the walls and all that, and then it just stops.
Yeah.
And then it's like a Conjuring movie.
Shit.
It's like a Conjuring movie jump scare. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, and then they're flashing their lights around, and like two of them like wander off to like see like
go find out what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like suddenly he's right behind one of them. Dead.
And all you hear, all I hear is greetings.
Yeah. It's like,
and I'm just like, yes, this is the Nightmare Batman level shit I was hoping for.
Yeah. And they definitely play into it in this scene. And yeah, so then he kills the first one, and then the other one's just like looking around, and he like cuts off the head of the second one.
Yeah, I was about to say, doesn't he throw the head to one of them?
Yeah, he cuts the head off the second one, and then he like the third one's like there with a shotgun, and he's looking, and then then suddenly Talos is like right in front of him, and tosses the head, and he's like capped, and then he catches it, and it's dark, and he can't see what it is. And he looks down, and he's like got his hands covered in blood, and it's the head, and he drops it, and then suddenly Talos has him by the throat, and the fourth one's taken off running already, or like hiding, and and he just like snaps the neck, and then goes down to Octavia and it's like, picks her up to carry her out.
And then he finds out that Reuven, the traitorous prick that he is, worked with Captain Vandro to do this, and then he takes Octavia back up to the ship along with Septimus. And Septimus is...
Yeah, before that, he as he's walking out, the way he finds that out is because the like walkie-talkie or the vox from the prisoner gets it from Reuben, and he turns around and he goes back in to kill the last guy, and then takes the vox speaker and starts talking to Reuben.
Completely forgot about that. Yeah, he did too.
And and then he like it's like, Reuben, you set this up. Like, yeah. And Reuben's just like a rat. He's awful. You just hate him instantly, like the way he talks.
You just love to hate him,
yeah. He's like a sniveling little like shit. And
you can just tell he's just trying to do whatever he can to gain favor with either Dark Gods or Abaddon, or both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so then he takes them back up. I'm guessing that Talos flies the ship because Septimus wouldn't have been in a state to do that, but
I can't remember how he gets back up. I think he either took his own took another ship with him or something like that, because Blackened was destroyed.
Only the gang ramp was destroyed, because you later see Blackened being repaired on the deck. Because Blackened's even in the second book, so
it's the Black Legion ship that they were given by Black Legion. They were like, well, we can't leave our ship behind. Well, that's okay, we'll give you one.
No, they even mention it by name. Blackened actually makes... They skip the scene, so you don't know how they get back up. But Blackened is back on the Covenant.
Because there's the scene where they're fighting the Titan, and Septimus is talking about how he's not used to flying the ship because it's so heavy, and it's not used to the old ship.
Yeah. That was the other one, because they had to use a different one for the landing. But yeah, anyway,
either or.
You reminded me. We skipped past the bit where they blow the hole in the side of the...
No, we haven't got to that yet.
Wait, didn't that happen before they landed on
No.
Prison
This
planet?
is them. No, this is them, and then they get back to the ship. They fix Septimus by giving him like all the artificer and a new hand with the face and everything, and then they all go to the Kryth cluster together,
I
and
thought the
that's where the
prison
void.
planet was on the outskirts of the Kryth cluster.
It is outside the Kryth cluster, and then they go further in to go fight and
Yes.
take over the planets, and then
Yeah.
that's where the void warfare happens, if I
Yeah.
remember right. Could be wrong.
Because
Don't hurt me.
I thought it was yeah. But anyway, there's the scene where they're on the ship and they've been like deployed and the ship is blowing up, and they have to get back
Oh no!
out.
Wait, you're right. The ship thing happened before the prison.
But yeah, before the prison bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, so they like attacking one of the like. I think it's as they were approaching the prison planet, wasn't it? Something like
yeah.
that before they
Well,
went in.
they were joining the fleet.
Yeah, yeah, and so they come across like a naval ship, and they're like attacking it, and then they launch the drop pods, and
As the shields were down for like a couple of seconds, so they
yeah,
timed it perfectly, and then it got the drop pods onto the ship in the naval fight, and then
which is kind of where you start liking or like at least having a respect for Vandred's like void warfare capabilities.
yeah, the glints come through, and then on top of that, it's just so cool because they get their way up to the top deck, and then they do the Vox scream.
Yeah, so it's the first time they do the Vox scream in the story, and
Hmm.
it's so cool. So because they go to blow down the thing, and they're like, oh well, melter charges will take too long, and Telos steps forward with his power sword that he's stolen from a Blood Angel, and he
Hmm.
cuts it, and he starts like cutting at it, and they're all just like hacking at it, and then they blow it down, and you
And then
expect
all
them
they
just
see is
to
the smoke, yeah. But
yeah,
instead, the red eye lens is coming through the smoke.
yeah, and you expect to be like you expect to them to come in like bolters firing like a typical space marine, but instead they're standing there and Telos just lets out this almighty scream that makes
Yeah,
the mortal crew's ears bleed because it's like
yeah,
amplified through the box speakers in his helm. And
yeah,
yeah, and then after that you just hear prey sight.
yeah. That's when you're introduced to the prey sight, and I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, which is just their thermal tracking and their helmets, but like
Yeah,
oh,
it's like Predator vision, like from
yeah,
the Predator movies.
yeah, it's so cool. And then they just start like killing everybody, and he gets to the guy on the throne, and he's
Yeah.
like entangled and connected by all these wires to the throne, and he's like, why, why would you do this?
Why not troll lol Mao?
Yeah, and then oh no, Telos asks him why he would attach himself to the throne and all that.
Ah, right.
Yeah, and he's just like, alright, well, now you're gonna die for your your emperor. And like kills him.
Lol
Yeah.
Mao.
And then they're heading back to
Oh, and then the funniest thing in the whole book happens. Oh, it's just like when they're trying to find and figure out a way to get Septimus to pick them up, and then it's like we don't know which way is the gunnery deck, and then but all these rushing rush of people are running past them, and
Yeah.
then Uzaz just like trying to speak Gothic as best as he can, picks one up, and then he's just like, "Ah, you from gunnery deck?"
Yeah.
and then he goes, and then the guy, in a hint of bravery, goes to shoot Uzaz in the head, and then the last bolt ricochets and then hits him in the head. It's
Yeah.
the funniest shit that I ever heard from in that whole book. It was unbelievable. I actually had to stop the car I was driving and just laugh because it was
It's
so funny.
good. It's so good.
Hmm.
But my like it also, and they do it through the whole book. It really shows the difference in power. Like the las bolts and the las pistols do nothing to the Ceramite. Nothing at all.
A
But
weapon that
bolter,
should be like strong by modern standards, punching holes in concrete and never missing.
Yeah.
And never jamming. Sorry.
Yeah, but then like the difference between that and the devastation that a bolter does to a human, like it's outlined so clearly, like the power difference. It's crazy. But yeah, it shoots his last pistol at him, bounces, ricochets off the helmet, and kills him. It's like
Funniest thing.
yeah,
And honestly, there's like a funny scene in pretty much every book that like is highlighted.
yeah. Well, that bit is very quickly followed up with, they decide they can't get back to the drop pod, And so Telos comes up with a plan, and he's like, I got a plan. It's probably a terrible plan.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, and he gets Septimus over to like some part of the wall, and he's like, okay, we're gonna blow a hole in the wall and get sucked out into the void, and you're gonna pick us up, Septimus. And Septimus is like,
Sure, Jan. Why
yeah.
not?
And then so they blow the hole in it, and then suddenly Telos just gets sucked out, but he smacks his head on the bulkhead on the way out, and he's basically just like floating, barely conscious, just like bleeding. And one of the others, I can't remember which one, injures their leg, but like Uzaz like goes over to like grab Telos to stop him spinning and like pull him towards him so they can like get picked up by the ship, and you kind of see that moment of clarity for Uzaz, in contrast to like his craziness. Yeah, it's just so funny because they're just like, yeah, let's blow a hole in the wall, and then just like backfires immediately.
Yeah. And then I'm a very detail-oriented person, and as the ship is coming out of the dock to try and go get Uzaz and all the First Claw, they talk about like how that they have their Thunderhawks, and then they paint their whole armor like specifically like to a bird or anything like that or something, and there's a crow's skeletal wings underneath blackened, and I'm just like, it's just details like that I love.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And yeah, and then we go to that's when we go through the Abaddon stuff. For those listening, I'm 7 books ahead. Like I read the Nightlords trilogy like 2 months ago, so a lot of this is coming back to me now.
Yeah. But then there's a bit of a gap after the Abaddon bit, and Telos has another fight with the Exalted, like arguing, and
then it's the grand battle with the Mechanicus.
Yes. Yeah.
Where we see the Titan.
Well, yeah. Well, before that, they have the argument with Vandred, and then Telos is like, "Fuck you! You're sucking up to Abaddon. I'm gonna go find Malkarian."
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Malkarian, the War Sage, whose quotes are the whole way through the book up to that point, and you're like, "Oh, when are we gonna find out about this guy?" And then he's actually a dreadnought. And they go to the chamber to wake him up, and the Exalted sends one of the crazy Atramenta after
that. That happens way after. That happens towards the end of the book. This is after the Krythe cluster fight.
No, because the Malkarian's down on the Krythe cluster fight. He's on Krythe during the fight.
Yeah, but that happens towards the end of the book because we're going to go through the Titan fight, and where we're introduced to Squad 3, the Third Claw.
Oh yes, because they have their first landing where they have to kill off the heads.
The Titan.
The Titan, and they also have to kill off the heads of the Adeptus Mechanicus that they're fighting too.
That's right, former 7th Claw captain, where 7th Claws just got fucked up by a Titan and their land raiders destroyed, and it's Adamar and Metacution. Is that how you say his name? I keep forgetting.
Yeah, Metacution.
Yeah. Adamar being the 7th Claw captain.
Yeah.
And then they take down a damn Titan, which I never saw happening.
Yeah, because that's right. That's before the fight with Vandred, because they disobey his orders and they go and save 7th Claw. Yeah. And
Metacution's just like, okay, I'll follow you then.
Yeah. And Adamar's with them at that point too. Yeah. But then they have the fight with Vandred, and they go and Telos is like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna go wake up the War Sage," and everyone's like, "Is he even gonna wake up? Because he's refused to wake up the last few times we tried to wake him up."
Was it like 4 or 3 or something like that?
Yeah, and so then Telos, he goes off to speak to one of the Atramenta that is kind of on Telos' side.
I think it's Garadon.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's one of them.
It's Garadon or Malak. No, Malak doesn't like him. It's Garadon.
It's Garadon. Yeah, Malak is the one who's faithful to the Exalted. But
he's also kind of all right with them, but he's loyal to whoever's in charge first.
Yeah, because he's talking to Adamar, and Adamar's trying to convince him to lead the 10th Company, And
Oh no! Wait, hang on. I got it backwards. Malik is the one with. Because I was writing this down. I was going along. Malik is an Ostraman, golden runes detailing his many victories. He has the tusked helm. He's got the powered gauntlet claws, and I just wrote "cool" underneath him. And then Garadon's the bronze hammer with no tusks on his armor. Bone horn protruding from his forehead. Doesn't believe in Talos and his visions.
yeah.
And then Raoul is the wanker. I just have champion Raoul wanker.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's talking to Adama of Seventh Claw, and he's trying to convince him to lead. And then suddenly, Malik turns up and is like, "Wow, you should lead. I would support you," kind of thing. And this is while they're waiting for Malkarian to wake up. And so the rest of First Claw is down there with Markutian, waiting for the Dreadnought to wake up. And that's when
Syrian,
Zal...
if I remember right.
Yeah, Syrian, Zal,
and Deltrian.
Deltrian, who is the tech priest.
What did you think of Deltrian?
Oh, very interesting. He's quite cool. I love the interaction between him and Telos, where he calls him like Legion 1310 or something like that. He's the first claw, third of the thing, and then he's like, "Oh, refer to me by Telos," and he's like, takes a mental note of that.
It's was it first claw, second marine, 10th company?
10th company, yeah.
Because he's the second marine because he's the apothecary. He's not actually the sergeant.
Yeah.
Because that was Vandred, if I remember right.
Yes, before Vandred took over.
Yeah, Malkarian.
Yeah. And so then they're ambushed by the Atramentar, who was sent by the Exalted to kill them. Yeah. And he's like, haha!
I just kind of kill them. I really kind of like Deltrian because he's got like the silver chrome smiling faceplate, looking like a smiling Death Reaper, and I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And he's got like he's got a human habit of like keeping his hood up and adjusting it. It's like a human reflex, but he doesn't need to do it.
Yeah. No, he is very well written.
And it's just because I don't find Mechanicus characters really well written, especially when we've done which one's the Gene Stealer one? Day
of Ascension. Yeah, because a lot of them they
kind of bleed together a little bit, except for the main character.
Yeah, but he's kind of got his own little sense of humor, and you see like little traces of his humanity left, but also the fact that he wants to fit in with the Nightlords, which is quite interesting. Yeah,
Deltrian's character is vastly explained more in at the end of Blood Reaver, and you do actually genuinely like Deltrian a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's really when they're talking about the reawakening of Malkarian, and they're just like, and Talos is just like, "I'm grateful for you too, Deltrian, for doing this," and he's like, "Your compassion has ruined the ritual."
Yeah, you deviated from the ritual. Did you do this intentionally? Like, he doesn't accept the thanks, and it's like...
Yeah. And then afterwards, after he clarifies, he's like, "Your compassion is noted."
Yeah.
And accepted.
Yeah. It is, it's kind of nice, because you kind of see that Telos shows him, like, a more friendliness than he gets from any of the other, like, Nightlords, and he kind of appreciates that on some level.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so anyway, then basically the Atramentar comes in, starts fucking them all up, and then you just hear like the whir of an autocannon.
Yeah, because Syrian and Medicushian are not pushovers; they're good fighters. But the problem is that Syrian loses his arm, and you're going to lose to an Atramentar Terminator plate 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, because their weapons are just doing nothing to the Terminator plate, and they're trying to aim for like his
weak points. Yeah.
Weak points, yeah. And I think it's Uzaz actually gets him in one of the weak points and stabs him with his gladius, and I'm like, hell yeah, right, Uzaz, yeah, because he's basically like, his leg gets that's Zal gets his leg cut off, but he's still like takes that injury to leap forward and stab the armpit joint of the Terminator.
That's right, yeah. And then you know, like I said, a Terminator can take on 3 Marines until you wake up the Dreadnought.
Yeah, and then you hear the autocannon just whirr, and it shoots 6 times, and the first one blows a hole in his chest, the other two basically eviscerate him, and then the other three after that basically just went straight through him because there was nothing left. And that's when you hear that Malkarian has woken up, and it's like,
And they're like, tell us, why'd you wake up?
I heard bolt of fire.
Oh,
It's so good.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that it's like I always love hearing about dreadnoughts in these books, but it's like their chuckles sound like grinding
Binary
gears.
Or binary code.
Yeah, well, like it's like there's a bit after that when they go with Talos up to the Exalted, and Malkarian's like, explain to me, Vandred, what's going on. And there's a bit of back and forth between him and Vandred, and he's like, you've gotten uglier, Vandred. I didn't think it was possible. It's like
that you've changed. You've fucking changed.
Yeah, and then there's like hear like a whirring, and it's like, oh, what was that? And he's like, it was my autocannon cycling, but it was actually him chuckling.
Yeah,
it's like,
but he didn't want to admit it.
Yeah, it's just really good. He's got some like dry humor, and yeah, you very quickly fall in love with Malkarian.
All the characters, really. Even the ones you don't like Reuven and the Exalted, you do find parts of them where you're just like, you're good in the contrast of these other characters.
Yeah.
And for the sake of brevity, they go down to the Crive, but then the problem is that before First Claw's deployed, Talos is getting a vision of, I can't remember what he says, but he mentions something about angels, and then that is like, the angels, it's not going to be 2 weeks, it's 2 hours that they're actually going to be arriving here to stop us.
Yeah, Abaddon got told by his seers that they had like 2 months or whatever, and they're like, no, they're coming now. Like, they're turning up now. And,
I think it was, they mentioned the Blood Angels, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a bit of a problem. And then they're just like, oh yeah, the Marines Darrent are also coming. And then I'm just like, I don't even know who that is, so I'm not scared. And then they're like, oh yeah, the Flesh Terrors. Fuck. The Flesh Terrors are not one of the Marines that I would want to face as a traitor.
No, and the fact that there are like 3 of them coming is like, you know, that's a big deal. It's bad enough if one of them turned up, because like they're already pitted against like a Titan Legion and like all these Admech.
The Mechanicus on the planet.
Yeah, and so then like they convince Vandred to pull back with the help of Halaskar, who is the leader of the
Third Company, if I remember right.
Third Company, yeah, who has like the big battle barge.
Hmm.
And Malkarian hears about the Prophet's vision and tells everybody to turn around and leave. And so they all pull back.
And then Abaddon's just Abaddon or Reuven or somebody's like, "Why are you guys leaving, you cowards?" And then
Reuven gets on the box with Vandred and like tells them what to do, and Vandred's like, I won't take orders from you, you sniveling traitor.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he's just like, this is what's happening. Blood Angels and that are on the way. Time to leave, and they, like classic Abaddon fashion, doesn't leave, but all the Nightlords start evacuating.
Yeah.
And Third Company can't get half their men off the ground because the problem is they're being shot down by Black Legion because they think they're traitors.
Yeah. That whole bit is really cool though, and it's like, and then Vandred's like, leave. We need your battle barge to survive. I'll pick up your I'll pick up your guys, and then he's like, okay, tell Abaddon that we're coming alongside him like we wanted, and then it's like, okay. So he's there, but he blocks the guns from firing on the barge that's leaving, and they're like, move around to the other side. And he's like, all right, fine, I will.
Just delay this for as long as he can.
Yeah, he's like, ask for confirmation because we just got told to be here.
This is where Vandred comes into play really interestingly, where he not only backs Talos' play and doesn't be a wanker, but he actually like plans for it, and it's a twofold plan.
He takes the side of the Nightlords, which is what you wanted him to do, instead of just sucking like.
And I think as well because like he trusts Talos' vision about the angels coming. So on top of that, he's like, okay, so it's actually not viable if we stay here because Black Legion. Yeah. Also, I forgot to mention that Black Legion, Abaddon throwing the Nightlords at the Titan Legions. Like other people have criticized that and saying that it was very dumb of Abaddon, but
it was intentional.
It was intentional. It wasn't dumb of Abaddon, because that's how he gets other Marines onto his side. He allows you to decimate yourself to the point where you need him.
Yes. Also, he was annoyed because his offer had been like turned down.
Rejected.
Yeah.
And he turned down the gods, yeah.
Yeah. But then
And
there's an interesting bit before Vandred like changes his mind and decides to pull back, where he's talking to Heliska, and Heliska basically calls him out and tells him he's an idiot, and then hangs up on him, and that's kind of the turning point where Vandred's like, actually, I choose my legion.
yeah, completely agree. And then he does the one thing that nobody thinks he does. He leads the ship. Like, obviously, there's some interesting naval battles and interesting navy kind of maneuvers, and that's where Vandred comes into it. But he starts putting the ship into the stratosphere so that the transport ships of the other legion can come in.
Yeah,
he
pretends to get hit, and so it starts like falling.
With damage, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, bleed out the plasma engine so it looks like we've had a critical hit, and he starts like dropping the ship towards the surface so that he can more quickly like pick them up.
Yeah, this is a twofold plan. This is a genius plan on Vandred's part, because not only does the third company escape, but he also saves the rest of third company and restocks his numbers. It's like 50 to 100 or more Marines or something like that.
Yeah,
something along that number. And so not only that, but that will also bolster his own ranks, the problems that they were having in the earlier part of the book.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like I've got nothing but my opportunity to win here.
Yeah, it's very, very clever, and it's well done, and yeah.
And then the Blood Angels drop pod onto the ship.
Yeah, well, they drop onto the ship as they're trying to escape, and then they have to fight their way out. But then right at the end, you also get the vision of how Talos got the name Soul Hunter, which it shows a little bit of Kurz in it, and it also shows him chasing after the.
Isn't M. Shen? This is the secondary ending where it's it goes back to the reason why he's called Soul Hunter, and then. I know you just said that, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to reiterate, is that it's because M. Shen was carrying his head, wasn't she?
Yes, and he chased after for vengeance, and it wasn't until the other Night Lords realized that she also had the relics of Kurz that they decided to chase after as well, but he was the only one who chased after her in vengeance.
I was doing load when I was listening to this, and I just had to stop and laugh because all the Night Lords are telling Talos. Talos is the only one that's refusing the order of not to kill M. Shen, and he's chasing after her. And all the other legionnaires are like, "No, don't do it! Don't disobey Kurz's last order. What are you doing? No." And then they find out that M. Shen took all the relics of Kurz, and his crown, his cape, his claws, and everything like that. And then they're just like, "Fucking bitch!" and then chases after him as well. And I'm like, and then Talos is just like, only when there's no personal benefit to you do you actually give a shit.
Yeah. Oh, that bit was really good. And then when they're on the ship as she's escaping, because she escaped back to her ship, and they land on it, and one of the other captains manages to get one of the relics back, and then disappears back off the ship and leaving his own men to die. And that's when the Eldar board the
I don't know why the Eldar turned up.
Opportunistic fucks.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, they're just scumbags. Fucking knife ears.
Yeah, you're gonna hate them later on.
Yeah, oh man, I already hate the Eldar. I don't need reason to. But but then the fight with her is amazing. I think they made the assassins too OP a little bit in the story.
I'd say it depends on it depends on the assassin, but yeah, it's a bit wow, really?
She's unstoppable, and they're talking about oh, it's nothing for an assassin to kill an Astartes.
I believe that for a second. I do believe that an assassin could take on an Astartes quite easily.
Well, I mean, the way they portray it in this book, it's any of the assassins would have no trouble absolutely destroying a Space Marine, and it's well, I mean, this is Talos. Talos killed a champion of the Blood Angels, who are known for their dueling, and took his sword. He shouldn't have had so much trouble even hitting her. In my opinion, I think because they are unaugmented, they just have like,
Well, no, they are augmented.
well, yeah, but like only to fit into their pseudo black carapace.
Uh,
And she's dodging bolter fire left and right while blinded.
and deaf as well because he grabbed her and vox screamed her, and then
Yeah.
he spit his acid spit
Yeah,
into her
he
eyes
spit,
and blinded her.
yeah, spit acid
And
in
it
her
says
face
it
and
delayed
blinded
her
her.
for only 4 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, and then she's blinded. He's shooting at her. She's still dodging it, and then triangulates where he is in like a couple of seconds, and then
Yeah.
like jumps at him, and it's like he screams and she's deafened, and then it's like, okay, well, now like she's just like swinging at where she thinks he might be, and yeah, and then he impales her. They made her a little bit too powerful, but I know it made a good fight scene and it made it all dramatic and stuff.
Mm.
And then afterwards, he's like holding her in his arms as she's like dying, and he's like relishing it,
Mm.
which is the most Night Lords thing that happens in Soul Hunter, really. To be fair, like, but yeah, it was really good. And then yeah, obviously they escape the Blood Angels, and that's where the book ends.
Well, what happens next is that Malkarian comes into a fight, and then there's another Blood Angels dreadnought there,
Oh
and then
yes,
that happens to be the Blood Angels champion that Malkarian beat on the Siege of Terror, and he's like, "Ha! I get to kill you twice."
yeah, I forgot about that bit. Oh, it's so good. It's a dreadnought fight, but everyone
Yeah.
watching is just like seeing the fight on Terra between the two
Yeah.
champions, and
Yeah.
it's really cool.
And then there's that other scene as well before that happens where I would argue is the most Night Lords thing is where they're all hanging in the rafters, Batman style, waiting for the Blood Angels to come in, and they just drop down
Oh
and then just
yeah,
stab them from the top.
that was pretty cool. I mean, more Night Lordsy in the form of like, um,
Their tactics.
and just like the flaying and all of that. Like
Mm.
that's Night Lords. When I think Night Lords, I think like flaying, skinning, hanging up while they're still alive, like
Yeah.
gory, nightmarish shit. But yeah,
then-
the surprise drop from top is pretty cool.
And then Malkarian ends up taking out the dreadnought, but he also takes himself out in the battle. He's like, "This is a great end for me."
Yeah.
And then he dies. And then on top of that, Talos tears open the sarcophagus of the Blood Angels dreadnought, and then sees like the half-dead body of the Blood Angel. And he's just like, oh, he hits him with that line where he just said, well, unnecessary, but I love that he did. He's just like, you failed just like your Primarch.
Yeah.
I was
And,
like,
also in
rough.
that battle, Adamar,
Adamar, yeah.
Yeah,
he got blasted.
he dies saving Marcutian.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mercutian is now a bona fide member of the First Claw, by the way. He's the heavy gunner.
Yes, yeah. Which is he's really awesome actually. You don't get much of an you don't see much of him, but
Not in this one, no.
all they talk about is like his stoicism. But yeah, he's really cool. But yeah, that dreadnought fight, awesome. And then right at the end, Talos is like, calls up Deltrian and he's like, oh, you need to send 2 servo squads up here. And Deltrian's like, oh, 1 servo squad will be enough to bring back the dreadnought. And it's like, First Claw has a gift for you, Deltrian.
Yeah, and he's like, plural, more than one.
Yeah, it's like, we have a gift for you.
And then it ends off with that, and then it ends with the Elder in the epilogue.
Yes. Which
You still don't know what that's about, do you?
I don't know what that's about yet, but it's intriguing, and I'm like, oh, I have an idea of who these characters is, and are knowing a little bit about my Eldar lore, because they are Ulthway.
Yeah, they're all way. If I didn't know what the I had the ending of Voidstalker spoiled for me, so if I didn't know that, I would have been very confused by this epilogue.
Yeah, see, it confused me. I knew who they were, and I knew enough about it so that it made like a general bit of sense, but and their part in the story doesn't make sense to me yet.
Yes.
No, but I can't wait to see Night Lords killing some Eldar.
Oh,
I'm
and then
down for that.
the other tragic thing: the Voidborn girl is dead.
Oh yes, the father crying.
about the whole, and that is also sprinkled through the story as well. That Septimus gave her the Nostroman coin, that a guaranteed protection, under the Night Lords, who gave it to you. So Septimus gave her his coin from Talos, and then funnily enough, like Talos and that are just fucking with him. And Septimus, he's just like, I need to know more about this girl that you've given my coin to there, so that now I have to protect her with my life.
Yeah, without my knowledge that you gave
Yeah.
my medallion to.
Yeah, and then he's like smiling under his helmet or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Sirian's just like, here, we can't have you walking around with that one. And Sirian gives him his coin.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a nice scene. Like, you just see, like, the human aspects and the kindness that Talos and Sirian have. Well, I would say not, like, most of the Night Lords don't have. But
well, like, yeah,
Talos
they can have,
do. Yeah, have that, and it's really, that was a great scene. I listened to that and I was like, shit, I want to listen to that again.
Yeah, and there's very few things in this universe that are pure evil, like 100%, if you know what I mean.
Well, there are some Night Lords that are that.
Oh, that's what I mean. But like even then, there's still that 1% in there that might be, good. And just because you display it doesn't mean you're a good person. But like, it's still there somewhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of shines in contrast when you see that in like Sirian and because you don't get it from Zal. He's nice,
not as much,
but he does not care about humans.
Zal is brutally honest in it. Like, that's his sort of redeeming factor, is that I don't think Zal would ever lie to you.
No, yeah, but then also you've got like all the other Night Lords are pretty much scumbags.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them.
No, yeah, and they're all like awful people. Like, it talks about somebody from the Third Claw, the branded ones in the second book, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy who was a murderer at 10 and something even worse at 13. And like, yeah, and he's just a scumbag, and like the rest of the Night Lords are like all scum, and that's part of why Talos hates what the Legion became.
Yeah. And that's why, as well, like when it comes to how they love the Voidborn girl, is that because nobody's been born on the ship in years, because the ship just does that to you.
Yeah, because of the amount of time it spends near the Eye of Terror and in the warp, but it's kind of like seeped into the ship, and it's made most of them sterile.
For those that are listening and don't know what Voidborn is obviously somebody who's been born in the void, someone who's been born in space and doesn't have a home planet.
Yeah, somebody born on a ship during void travel.
And some of these Voidborn will go their entire lives without seeing a planet or seeing the sun.
Yeah. No,
like seeing the sun, like as in like seeing it through the filter of an atmosphere on a planet.
Yeah. So, that's the story. But if you had to pick one character just from what you learned in the Soul Hunter book, which of the characters is your favorite?
It's like saying who's my favorite character in the Lord of the Rings. Aside from Talos, because Talos is obviously the goat in this one.
I mean, it could be Talos.
No, I'll say Talos, but if I had to choose somebody else, because Talos is going to be my answer throughout all the books.
Yes.
It's a toss-up between Septimus and I'm going to say Sirian.
Oh, see, that's interesting. I would say it's a toss-up between Zal and Septimus for me.
Yeah, and like, here's the thing. I could say the same thing another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, those three of the Space Marines are the ones that you like the most.
Yeah.
That I also really like most of the other characters. But like, I even like Uzaz.
In his own redeeming way, yeah.
In his own, he's tragic in a whole different way.
Yeah. They're all tragic.
They're all tragic. I mean, I haven't heard much about the backstory of Zal or Sirian besides like Zal growing up with Talos. But
one thing I actually do want to know more about what you think is that when you think of Octavia, who do you picture in your head? Like, what does she look like?
Wow, she looks like the Rogue Trader Navigator in my head.
Yeah. No, I always picture her as like, Selena from Underworld.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
With a third eye. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like pale. But then she's also like shorter than Septimus, so she's like she's kind of short as well. Short. They describe her as like short, skinny, pale, and like with like she doesn't have like the claws or anything yet, so she's not like transforming like navigators do.
And there's also no. She also mentions this in Blood Reaver, where there's no standard mutation for them as well.
No, yeah. Besides the fact that they all seem to get
Before
very pale.
besides the third eye, yeah, and the
Yeah.
third eye. But here's the thing: even then, that's not also guaranteed as well, because you could have a kid with two astropaths, and there's no chance. Like, there's a very slim chance that would even be an astropath kid.
Yeah.
Because if I remember right, the gene for astropath is very recessive.
Yes, yeah, and it's quite difficult, and that's why
Which is
female
why these
navigators at a certain age get pulled back and basically get turned into breeding machines.
Yeah, because like that's why these astropath houses have so many kids for that reason.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? Yeah, so how would you rate the voice acting by Andrew Wincott?
Oh, it's fantastic. Honestly, like he plays a large part in differentiating between the characters, because like early on you're like, oh yeah, it's a Night Lord, and they even play into it, like the fact that like other people don't notice the difference between them, and they slowly build on that. But like the voices are so distinct, and especially how he does Septimus's voice, because Septimus speaks in Straman prominently, but he has to talk to Octavia in Low Gothic.
Yeah, and that's why he comes out like this stunted way of talking, Lord.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm not sure what the word is in Gothic.
Yeah, because like it's like what they're saying is that Nostraman is like gangster's poetry, how it's like very weird and it's like very expressive.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually when you see the interactions between Octavia and Septimus. They are just some of the best parts of the book. In fact, most of the best parts of the book, and even most of the book itself, is not fighting. It's not.
No, it's the interactions.
Porn. Yeah.
No, yeah. So how would you? So you'd rate the voice acting 10 out of 10?
Yeah, easily a 9.
Yeah, because like one thing I've struggled with when it comes to any of the Warhammer books is they're all male voice actors, which is not a problem because a lot of the characters are male, so that makes sense. But the problem is that when they try and do female voices, and it doesn't translate well. But I would say that he does a very good job of doing an Octavia.
He does, actually. I hadn't really considered that, because that is a weak point in some of the others, where you're like, oh, there's just like, one voice that they do for the females.
Don't get me wrong, I love Jonathan Keeble and I love Gareth Armstrong, but female voices are also hard to do when you've got a voice like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I say Andrew Wincott did a good job.
Yeah, and also he was the one who kind of set the Night Lords with the accent that they have, and it just fits their character so perfectly.
They've all got slight deviations in their accents, which just makes it even more better. Like, just amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, he does a phenomenal job. And between his voice acting and Andrew Dembski Bowden's writing, they just pair so well.
Yeah. And, yeah, that was my next question. It was like, what do you think of the story out of 10?
I would say... well, it's easily in my, like, top 5 books that I've read. Not just Warhammer books, but, like, it's way up there. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would recommend listening to it in an audiobook for the same reason Andrew Wincott's voice acting. But it's just it was astounding. Like, I went into it thinking that I was going to enjoy it, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I was.
Yeah, it's the opposite of that meme where like I expected nothing and I'm still disappointed. But it's the opposite. I expected a good time and I was given a great time.
Yeah, it really is quite amazing. And even like having heard like you tell me little bits from it before I read it, and you were like, oh yeah, it's really like it's quite like humorous in parts. And I'm like, yeah, it will be. And then there's bits that just like got me and actually made me laugh, like out loud in the car.
Even though you were warned of them, you were still like, nah.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? It's actually just so well written. And the Void Warfare, usually one of the most boring parts of a Space Marine novel, was genuinely interesting.
Because of the way it was described, you could picture it in your head visually.
Yeah, and because it wasn't just, oh, this person sent this ship and blew up this ship, and this person sent this ship and they were traveling at this speed. Like, it was really well done.
Yeah. And then that also helps the impact of the story.
Yeah,
when
because
you're
that's why you like Vandred, as you start to understand that
and then he
is
does
capable.
cool shit like, yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I see it now. I see how this guy became the leader of 10th Company.
Yeah. You know.
Now, I would rate it 9 out of 10 for the story because, 9.5 out of 10 because I do love the story, but there were just too many like instances of that prisoner, for example, where I'm given this whole character's backstory and this whole character's like opinion, only to just die. And like the trader vessel that had Octavia as a first captain, I was like,
I would give it a 9 as well, but I actually enjoyed those parts.
oh, don't get me wrong, I enjoy them. It's just like, oh, it happened again.
Yeah.
Oh, it happened again.
It's like setting up a character and you're like, oh, what's going to happen to this character? He's probably going to die. But oh, well, you know, there's a chance that he gets taken as a slave or something else interesting happens. But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed those bits, especially the perspective they gave of like the fear building as like a terrifying space marine with a skull painted on his helmet is like staring you straight in the eyes.
Yeah. And it wasn't slow. I like the pacing, but I just feel like that second ending with the Talos and Mshen should have happened a little bit earlier in the book, maybe, because it's not that it diffused the ending, because the ending was great, but it just kind of like, I think it was placed weirdly.
I agree. I think it should have been placed differently.
Either middle or somewhere like around when they were battling on Krythe.
Yeah, and I can understand why they put it at the end to try
to
put the impact to like the name Soul Hunter. But yeah, I
just
I
a little
think
nitpicky.
it was a little bit of a like change of pace.
Yeah, it changed the pace a little bit too much during that end battle. But anyways,
yeah.
And obviously characters 10 out of 10.
Yeah, the character writing is 10 out of 10. Like they just did an amazing job, and the contrast between them and what the Nightlords like are known for, and the little bits of humanity you see in them, and the like. Just the sassiness of their like wit.
It gets rid of the 2D image that you have of them.
Yeah, or of particular Nightlords anyway.
Or at least how you can see it, because like I remember I was trying to change your opinion, not change your opinion, but I was trying to like introduce you to my opinion of the Nightlords by getting you to read Pharos. But the problem is that Scrivok didn't help me with that.
No, but
then you were like, oh, they're okay, and I'm like, heartbroken.
I mean, I feel this the same way about the Nightlords as a whole. I like some of the characters. I don't have anything against Nightlords as like a legion, but they're Nightlords.
Scumbags.
Yeah,
scumbags.
They're scumbags, and some of them have really interesting stories, and some of them are really redeemable, like Talos, Zal, Therian, and like
it adds an extra layer of depth.
Yeah, and Sevatar and all of that. Like they have like amazing characters that stand out from how awful the rest of the Legion is. Which makes like certain Nightlords really, really interesting. But as a Legion, I still feel kind of the same way about them.
Nah, that's fair. So taking into consideration all those scores and getting the mean average, I would say I'd put this book at around 9.8 out of 10.
Yeah, I reckon solid 9.5.
9.5?
Like fantastic. Like couldn't recommend it anymore. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would say this jumps straight up to like one of my favorite book of all time of Warhammer.
Yeah, when I try to think of what I didn't like in the book, I struggle.
I was about to say the same thing. I struggled to find something wrong with it. Like, it took me an hour just to think of those two things that I didn't like about it. And even then, the book wasn't ruined or hindered by it in any real way.
No, and like, at the start of the Abaddon scene, I was like, you know, they're gonna do my boy Abby dirty because he's like the bad guy and he's being portrayed as like the
moronic antagonist.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, but they actually didn't. and they even did him well. They did the Chaos Gods well, and yeah, like even the most
competent
mundane,
villains.
Yeah, even the most like mundane characters, like the father of the Voidborn, that you get a few lines of dialogue out of at the very most.
The Black Market setting up scenes like that.
Yeah, like you barely even see this character, but then when he's there cradling his daughter dead at the end of it, your heart kind of breaks. Like you just
it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that is really sad, and this character barely got a few lines in the book.
But the importance and impact is carried through.
Yeah, which is just a testament to the writing. It's like amazing.
Right. Well, with that, we're probably going to end the episode there. Those of you who are listening and want to join the book club, get to reading Blood Reaver. Don't know when the episode's going to come out. It's whenever Corbin finishes it, because I finished it weeks ago.
Yeah, well, I'm very quickly making my way through it. It is another fantastic read. But yes.
The book club episodes, I don't think we'll have on a schedule. It'll just be more like whenever we finish them, whenever we upload them.
Yeah, and because I mean,
for the time being,
we could pump them out so quickly with how many we've already done, but we probably will, be limited by our schedules. But watch this space for more book club episodes.
Absolutely. You guys have a lovely day. Pick up Blood Reaver, and see you next time.
Thank you. Dominus Nox.
In Midnight Clad.
For the glory of chaos!